Hello and welcome to the NFL Corner, episode 4. Today we will be talking through your news, the new proposals by the CBA to talk about some NFL games, and also the Combine. This was meant to happen yesterday, so it will be more of a reaction and a preview, mixture of both. I'm joined by my friend Will. How are you today?
Very good, thank you. How are you?
And I am fine. Let's get straight into the show. So, this should have been up yesterday, but we had some technical issues, and since that, the Combine started. But we're still going to go as if we were doing it as a preview, but also we can kind of talk about some, maybe some 40-yard dash results from the QBs and the wide receivers and the tight ends from yesterday. But we'll start with some news. The Giants have released Ogletree and Martin, and they have saved $13 million cap space. The Redskins have released their tight end, Jordan Reed. Mason Crosby has signed a 3-year deal with the Packers, so if you're sick of him kicking field goals, you're going to be seeing him for a bit more. He's got a 3-year extension. And the Jags are not expecting to pick up their defensive tackle, Darius. Alongside this, Joe Burrow has been talking to 4 teams at the Combine. He's been talking to the Dolphins, the Lions, the Redskins, and the Bengals, who are his consensus home. Yeah. And also, we'll talk about, as part of our news section, Henry Ruggs did not break the 40-yard dash.
Fortunately not.
He is the 4th fastest, I think, since 2006. And it was the fastest from a tight end by, we're just going to call him Albert O. First fastest since from a tight end since I think it was 2016. So, apart from that, any reaction to the news? Maybe Henry Ruggs didn't break the record. Is that a surprise to you?
I knew he was going to run fast, but the fact he's not broke the 4.22 set by John Ross, it's not too disappointing. A 4.27 is still extremely good. I'm not surprised really. 4.22 is tough time to beat. He can definitely leave with his head held high. He did a great run. Just reacting to some of the news, Marcel Darius getting his option declined. That's not surprising because he was a bit of an underperforming player, and if you can save $20 million not picking up his option, it makes a lot of sense.
Frees up more for example, Ngakoue.
Exactly.
Maybe Calais Campbell if they want to keep him as well.
You've got to look down the road of who you need to pay. The Giants, obviously, what was the Giants news again?
The Giants have released Ogletree and Martin, and they've saved $13 million in cap room.
Yeah, another good move, really. Ogletree's in his career, he's just an average linebacker now. And again, $13 million. I don't think you want to pay $13 million to Ogletree.
No,
at this moment in time.
It's all about that cap room, and we will be getting onto more free agency as we nearly hit March, because this is obviously, unless it's a leap year, the last day in February. I don't know if it's a leap year or not, but we are entering March, and that is when the free agency starts. Is it middle of March?
It was 3 weeks on Wednesday, so it's 18th of March it starts.
18th of March, so we're not very far away at all. A couple more episodes.
And the franchise tag deadline has the franchise tag time to franchise tag your players is just open today, and I think it closed on the 10th of March, so you might see some players getting tagged now.
Exactly, we could talk about that, and obviously we were talking yesterday about Amari Cooper.
Yeah.
He's rumoured to be tagged, and Dak Prescott, you're going to negotiate him to get a long-term deal, which, to be fair, it's all sensible. It all makes sense. Nothing out of the ordinary has happened. Tom Brady is going to be trying to dip his toes in free agency, which, to be fair, could be expected. I know a lot of people were saying
he's looking likely. He's going to leave the Patriots, join a new team.
I think it makes sense now. I think this is the time.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've seen Drew Brees he's not retiring. He's more likely to stay with the Saints. I think that makes sense because he had a brilliant year. Yeah. But moving on, we have the new. That was our news. But now we're on to the CBA, which is the proposals that was put forward to the NFL. 1 extra game, 7 playoff teams. Preseason now down to 3 games. Obviously, that makes it a 17-game season. Yeah. But apparently some of this wouldn't take effect until 2021.
No.
This is how it would work. The first seed gets a bye, as usual. The second seed then plays the 7th seed. 3rd versus 6th, 4th v 5th over a elongated wildcard weekend.
Yeah, 6-game wildcard weekend instead of a 4-game wildcard weekend.
Yep, and the lowest seed winner from the wildcard weekend faces the first seed. For example, if the 7th team beat the 2nd seed, they would then play the first, and so on and so forth. This was proposed the NFLPA group, which is the NFL Players Association. They voted 17-14, which we realised yesterday didn't account to 32.
Someone just decided not to vote.
So I'm not sure.
It's not going to swing the tide in
either the website
direction.
got it wrong, or there's only 31 represents. To allow the deal to be proposed, because it was obviously a majority, which makes sense. But we have got some quotes. Aaron Rodgers was reportedly one of the biggest objectors to the extension to the season, and Steelers centre Maurkice Pouncey has politely said, fuck that shit. Your opinions, Will, are you on Marquise Pounce's side, or are you more looking at the fans' perspective, which my fan perspective is more games equals more fun for us?
Yeah, I like it. I know some people haven't liked the extended playoffs, but, having 7 teams, it's going to make the playoffs longer, which is what fans wanted. They wanted more football. And some people are saying, that means worse teams are going to get into the playoffs, which I disagree with, because like the Rams finished 9-7, had a winning record but still missed out just because of head-to-heads, which was a bit unlucky for them. I like it. The 17-game season, obviously, it might not start till the 2021 season, but it means obviously more football, but it means the players over their contracts could get more money because they've got to play that extra game.
And no one will ever end up even either. Do you know that teams ended up 8-8? No one will ever end up having a .500 season, as they call it.
It is going to be weird seeing teams finish 9-8 something like that, isn't it?
Because sometimes you finish 8-8 and you go, that is a very average season. There is not going to be an average season. No. You're either going to finish with a
losing or winning record.
Yeah, literally. There's no middle ground. But you've got to think of it. We look at it from a fan's perspective because, of course, as everyone else, we are all fans of the NFL.
Yeah.
What do you think from a player's perspective is the positives and negatives? Because it's easy to look at it from our sphere and say, this is brilliant, this is going to be extra. But obviously Aaron Rodgers has said he wants more time in the off-season, a bit more rest and recovery. Because it's tough on you. It's a strenuous game to play.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that players every single week come out and play in their, at the top of their form is quite incredible to me, just because of the wear and tear on the body in every single player and how physical the game is. I only played it for 1 year, and it is a very, very tough game. Like, you've got to be very, very... It's very, very physically tough. So I can understand players playing every single week. It's going to wear and tear on the body, but it is what it is, really. I mean, an extra game's not too bad. At least they didn't add another 6 games or whatever, like half of the season, and add it on to the end of the season. It's only an extra game. It's not the end of the world. And like I said before, players, because they've got that extra game to play, the contract spread over the season's going to be bigger. So they're going to get a bit of extra money. But we'll have to see how it pans out, really.
I think they're probably looking at it as I like my time off. This is going to be a little bit more difficult for my time. But also, again, you say the playoffs, it gives another team an opportunity. Can you imagine a team that goes from the 7th seed to get into the Super Bowl and winning that'd be...
It's not impossible,
No, it's not impossible. I mean, you look at the Titans this year. I do agree with it. It would be nice to see teams, for example, like the Eagles made it to the playoffs with, I think it was it an 8-8 record?
Eagles were 9-7.
9-7,
yeah.
But then the team under that was obviously the Dallas Cowboys. But the Rams didn't make it, and they had a positive record as well. So that seems a little bit harsh on them. But now with the 7 playoff teams, they'd be able to make it, which I think is better for the league, and I think it might bring more fans to the league, because it may just be the fact that their team has never quite made it to the playoffs, and they've got a now higher chance than they ever did.
Yeah, and like once any team gets into the playoffs, there's a chance they can win it, because that's how it is.
That's the way it works.
Just giving another chance to win a Super Bowl. I think it's a good idea, really, by the new proposed CBA, and also they might be getting rid of the transition tag, so they'll only have the franchise tag. I think that's why the Cowboys are stalling on giving Dak Prescott and Amari Cooper deals, because they want to see how does the CBA pan out when it's fully established. What are the rules and regulations going to be?
I was going to say, I haven't known much about how's that going to work, because I know the franchise tag, it kind of, for example, we'll talk about it in Amari Cooper, it keeps him here for a year.
Yeah.
And then it's almost like we'll put it on the back burner and we'll deal with it next year, which it makes complete sense, because you deal with your QB this year, and then you deal with arguably your number one wide receiver next year.
Yeah. The franchise tag, how it works is it's just a 1-year deal, and it pays the player a salary which is average to the top 5 salaries at that position. So I think the franchise tag this year, I think it's about 19-20 million, so it's quite a fair chunk of change. But players don't want to play in it because it's only a 1-year deal, so if they get injured, they're not guaranteed to get that big contract they should be owed.
Yeah.
And usually a team gives a franchise tag out if it's like a 1-year wonder, or they can't afford to pay the player down the road. They franchise tag them, and then they might franchise tag them again, and then just say, let them walk. And by the time that franchise tag's over, their value's dropped a lot, and they can't get paid that contract that they should have done.
Is it kind of similar? I know, just because is it kind of similar to football and a 1-year loan deal almost? Like you get them for the year, you pay the wages, and then, as I say, deal with it next year. For example, you can't pay maybe Amari and Dak this year, so you'll focus on arguably the most important one, and then kind of come back to it next year.
What it does is, it stops the player from hitting the open market. So if you franchise tag a player, they can't negotiate with other teams when free agency opens. They either sign that franchise tag or they sit out the season like Le'Veon Bell did. He skipped the entire season. and then signed a big long-term deal with the New York Jets afterwards.
Yeah.
The transition tag, I'm not too sure what the difference is, but I think with the new CBA, that's looking more likely that's going to be eliminated. So that we're only going to have one tag, the franchise tag, which is kept on.
It makes enough sense. It doesn't seem out of the ordinary. But on from the news and the playoff teams, some of the players that will be playing in this league come next year are the people that were at the Combine from Thursday through to Sunday, is it this week?
Thursday, Sunday.
If you want to talk about who's performing on each day.
Yeah, I'll just get that up.
I was going to say, last night we, which I thought was going to be streamed on YouTube, it wasn't. I was quite upset. But on Thursday we had the quarterbacks prospects, we had the wide receiver prospects and the tight end prospects. Today, on the Friday, we've got
place kickers, special teams, offensive linemen and running backs. Saturday, we have defensive linemen and linebackers. And then Sunday is DBs, so safeties and cornerbacks.
So that's the way it's going to work. And basically, if you don't know what the Combine is, it's a bunch of tests. For example, like a long jump kind of thing, like a standing long jump, a vertical jump, a 40-yard dash, a 3-cone, I think it's called. Or is it 4-cone?
The Combine, I think
it's a 3-cone like shuttle sort of thing that they do.
Yeah.
They do little drills like obviously if you're a wide receiver you'll turn and catch as you're running across a line.
Quarterbacks will practice like throwing different routes to wide receivers.
Yeah.
Like different deep passes, medium passes, short passes.
Yeah. And it kind of just gives you an idea of like their accuracy or how big is their arm, like can they make that deep ball throw.
And teams also get 30 meetings per team. You get 30 meetings where you can pick any player from the Combine to have an interview with, get to know their ins and outs. So it kind of just gives teams a better understanding of who they actually want to draft on draft night. It's a big part of the process because they've all seen their college highlights, but they want to know what their personality is like. Can they handle being an NFL player? So it is a vital part of the season to get to know what the prospects are.
And I think it whets the appetite for the draft, which is coming up in April, which I've got to admit the Combine has helped me to, one, get some knowledge on these players. For example, doing the research, then you know who you're drafting, and it gives the fans a bit more perspective. For example, not everyone watches college football, especially not in the UK, because I know it's not as easily accessible as the NFL. It's not as promoted as the NFL.
There's a ton of college teams as well in different divisions.
Yeah.
Unless you live in America and live in a state and support a college team, it's quite hard to follow it.
I mean, because they play in stadiums and everything. And, but so it gives us a good knowledge of this is who you should look out for. There is obviously the narrative is pushed towards certain players. Like the narrative very much of yesterday was pushed towards Joe Burrow and Tua as the main guys from the quarterback position, which fair enough. But we're going to talk about some other ones before we get on to our main three prospects. The first one I've got on my list is Jordan Love, who is out of Utah State, who this season in 2019, or should I say last season now because we're in 2020, 3,402 passing yards, 20 passing touchdowns, 17 interceptions and 20 sacks, which off the front doesn't look very impressive. However, if you look at his 2018, 3,567 passing yards, 32 passing touchdowns, only 6 interceptions and only 9 sacks. So 11 less interceptions and sacks over 2018 than 2019. Does that play a part, Will?
I think when you look at his stats, you can say he's definitely regressed, but you've also got to take into account his team wasn't that amazing. And sometimes, especially at the college level, quarterbacks, they can't carry the team as much as an NFL veteran would be able to do. Obviously, you've got to look at it and think it's a regression, it's not a good sign. But I think with Jordan Love, he's definitely a first-round talent. And I think teams will just take the risk on him just because they've seen what he can do when he's got the full array of weapons and a good offensive line. I mean, it is what it is, really. I mean, I still think he will get picked in the first round just because he's a quarterback and it's a very valuable position.
Yeah.
I think a team will take a chance on him.
I think you've almost got to trust him. You've got to look at his personality as well. If he's got a very good personality, then he may be viable to take above a man we'll talk later, which was Justin Herbert. We'll talk about him because he's a bit shyer, and I think if Jordan Love can show his confidence, then they might be more willing to take him. But you have kind of got to trust him as in to say, look at my 2018 tape and look at my 2019 tape. But then, which we will get onto later, but I'll make the point now, you look at Joe Burrow's 2018 tape, widely disappointing in comparison to his 2019 tape.
Yeah.
So if we're saying we should take 2019 Joe Burrow as a first-round pick, are we saying it's only fair to look at the 2018 Jordan Love and say he's arguably up there as well?
Definitely.
So
because it's one year from Burrow, isn't it? Like he could have the regression we're not expecting.
Yeah, we talked about him. We'll talk about Burrow a bit more later. But is he a great story, or is he a great player? for years to come. But
Yeah.
we'll get onto him later because
Yeah.
he's going to be one of our top 3.
Yeah.
Another man I put down on the list that wasn't in my top 3 because he's very much huge arm, pocket passer. It's Jacob Eason out of Washington. 3,132 passing yards, 23 passing touchdowns, 8 interceptions. When I look at him, I think steady. I don't think stand out, but I think steady. What is your opinion?
Yeah, I think there's only a certain amount of teams that would be good for Jacob Eason. Just if you look at his skill set, he's not one of those people that can run out the pocket. He's one of those big arm players that sits in the pocket. I watched his combine highlights, and his footwork's not amazing. Like, he doesn't usually drop back and look around. He relies on that big arm a lot because he can make any throw on the field because he can make the big deep throws. He actually run a 4.8940, which for a guy of his size was actually not that bad.
Yeah,
he's run quicker than some other QBs. I think if you look at where he's going to get drafted, it will be like maybe a 3rd or 4th round. Maybe a team with an established quarterback might take him just to sit behind and learn from. I don't think he can start in the NFL immediately, but I definitely think he could be a good prospect down the road.
Do you think he's going to? Is there much you can do because of his size that will improve his mobility? You look at Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson's 5'10". Is he 5'10"? He's 5'10", isn't he?
5'10" Russell
Yeah, he's
Wilson.
5'10", Russell Wilson. So you look at him and he's able to move around the pocket. He's able to duck under tackles. When you look at Jacob Eason, he's a much bigger guy. Do you think that's going to help or hinder him? Because we were talking the other day about the movement of the quarterback position, and we were talking about how we've seen success from Pat Mahomes, who's got such good movement in the pocket. Deshaun Watson's got great movement in the pocket. And you look at them, and then you look at Jacob Eason, who's very much a throwback. I say throwback, it's not that long, but you know what I mean.
I know what you mean. He's not the
very much
model
Brady,
player.
Breeze, Rodgers in terms of his movement.
I'd compare him to Ben Roethlisberger from the Steelers.
Oh yeah,
A big QB who sits in the pocket, and a Roethlisberger for his size, when in his younger years, could actually run pretty well. Obviously, the big problem is because of him being bigger. He's a bigger tight. He's easy to hit when it comes to play. He's not as like you compare Russell Wilson. He can evade people, and his deep passing's unbelievable. That's what makes him a unique player. He's definitely going to be easily sacked just because of his size, and the movement might hinder him. But if he can get the ball out quick, that big arm could help him getting the ball out quickly, making the big throws.
Do you think his success in the NFL depends on his offensive line?
Yeah.
If they can stay strong and they can keep him in the pocket, to give him time on the ball, and he can pick the passes, do you think that makes him go from a 4th rounder to 2nd round late first? If all these things get proven in the NFL.
Yeah, I think if all the pieces fall into place for him, like a good offensive line, good weapons on the outside, I think he can be a success. Because I remember Dak Prescott's first year, he came into the league. Tony Romo got injured. Dak Prescott's thrown into the starting lineup, and we're thinking, 4th round rookie. But when you look at what he had Zeke Elliott, who was rookie of the year that season. He had the best offensive line in the league. He had Des Bryant. He had Cole Beasley. Jason Witten was still there. So he had all the talent around him to help him be a success. And if Jacob Eason's got a similar situation, I think he could also be a success.
Well, it's good to hear about that, but we'll talk about now the men that are making the headlines. One isn't competing at the Combine, but he's on your screen now, and he's Joe Burrow from LSU. The consensus number 1 draft pick from, we think is going to go to the Bengals, but as I say earlier, he talked to 4 teams. Just some of the stats. 5,671 passing yards, 60 passing touchdowns, 5 rushing touchdowns, only 6 interceptions, Heisman Trophy winner, national champion. Is there anything he can't do?
This season, he proved everything. He could be a starting quarterback in the NFL. It's an outlier because it's been only his starting season, so some people could say 1 year wonder, but he's shown that he can. His team was undefeated. He beat Trevor Lawrence in the national championship game, who was also undefeated coming into that game, and just played his team off the park. We all know he's going to the Bengals. Will he have a better career than some of the other prospects? We don't know that, but if you're looking based off this season right now, Joe Burrow is going to be the number 1 overall pick. Yeah, definitely.
And he appears to have the confidence as well because he obviously moved high schools. I think he was at Oklahoma and Ohio, we said yesterday?
He was at Oklahoma and Ohio State, so he transferred through a lot of colleges before he's got his chance to start, and he's proven when he's got that chance he can perform.
Well, that's the thing, and to be fair, it takes a brave guy to make that decision because there was another guy we will talk about that has never left the city he's in, and I think to be the guy to make, I'm not doing what's best for my career here, to make that decision, and I'll look at him, it's paid off completely.
Oh, yeah.
And he did say in a quote, one, he won't work out because he's going to wait for pro day, which is more than fair enough. And he has said, I will play for whoever drafts me, because there's been a lot of rumours that he doesn't want to play for the Bengals because, politely, it's the Bengals. So what do you think? Because you can look at it as, fair enough, he's going to say, he said he's going to play for whoever plays him, and that is, commendable.
Yeah.
Or is it, he doesn't sound very excited because he's going to go, well, I'll end up where I'll end up.
I think he's accepted the truth. He's going to go to the Bengals. Since January, since the draft picks were, who's going to be the number 1 overall pick, since it was announced, he probably knew I'm going to the Bengals anyway. So he's had that time for it to let it settle in. But if I'm the Bengals, what I'm hearing from Joe Burrow saying I'll play for anybody. It's just what you want to hear, because you don't want to be drafting him with that doubt in your mind, thinking, will he request a trade? Is he here for the long run? And obviously, when you draft a player in the first round, you've got their rights for about 5 years. So they wouldn't have to let him. He wouldn't leave after the first couple of years anyway.
No.
But it's what you want to hear from the Bengals, that he's going to stay, and he could be their future QB for a long time.
I do think so, and I think he can. I think if you, maybe not this season, because we were talking about this yesterday, and I don't think this is going to be a massive turnaround. The Bengals, I don't think, will become a playoff team next year. Well, maybe if there's 7 teams, but
yeah,
San Francisco had the 2nd draft pick last year. They picked Jimmy G. Not Jimmy G, sorry. They picked Nick Bosa. And then they went straight to a Super Bowl. I don't think that's going to be the same with Joe Burrow, but for years to come, that is a QB that you can build your franchise around.
I'd agree with that. I don't think they're going to bounce back straight away, because if you look at the 49ers, the only reason they got a high pick in the first place was because Jimmy G tore his ACL. They've always had that talent on the field. It's just when your quarterback goes down, it's very, very hard to overcome that. I think Joe Burrow going from LSU to the Bengals will be a big shock for him, because if you look at what he had with LSU compared to the Bengals, LSU had probably the best offensive line in the country. They had a wide receiver who's not coming into this draft. He'll be in next year's draft, but he could be a top 5 pick. He was very, very good. He's had all the weapons around him.
Running back as well, Helaire.
Yeah, Helaire, who's coming into this draft. So he's had all the pieces around him, and it will be interesting to see how he transitions to the Bengals, who've got a lack of talent, but also a young head coach in Zach Taylor, who's looking to, he got hired last season from the Rams. I think he was their quarterback coach. So he might be able to work well with Joe Burrow and bring him on as a quarterback.
And he'll be learning from Andy Dalton, who's been in the league a while as well. Yeah. I think he'll go straight in as a starter, I personally think anyway, because if he's a first-round draft pick.
I can't see anyone beating him out in training camp.
No, definitely not. But we'll talk about someone who else won't be working out at the Combine and didn't work out yesterday. It's Tua Tagovailoa from Alabama. 2,840 passing yards, 33 passing touchdowns, and only 3 interceptions. That might not look as impressive, but that is because he only did that in 9 games. So, on average, that's a fantastic record for only 9 games. But he did fracture his hip, which is an issue because that is the reason he won't work out. This Combine is to assess more his personality, his charisma. Has he got the confidence? Can he be a leader? But you've got to look at that fractured hip, Will, and you've got to think, if he gets sacked in the NFL, because they hit big and they hit hard, do you think he's going to play with the back of his mind, if I get hit, my hip could literally pop out of place at any moment?
Yeah, he's going to have them doubts. He's had injuries all his career pretty much since he's been the star at Alabama. But that hip injury, it's a vital one, because it affects your torque when you're throwing the ball. It's a big part of it. Will it affect him throwing? He's going to have it in the back of his mind, but I think he's got to go into the situation and think, because if he does play with it in the back of his mind, thinking I'm going to get injured, it might lower his play, because he might not play to his full potential. He needs to just try and block it out.
Yeah.
Show him what I can do. If I get hit, I get hit. I've got to get back up from it. But I can understand the doubt, because it did trouble him and it knocked him out for the rest of the college season.
And we're looking at the draft obviously upcoming. Do you think, as everyone else is pretty much in every single person's mock draft, Tua is going to the Miami Dolphins? Do you think that is a fair assessment? Because I think it's a perfect fit, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, the only doubt with Tua is injuries, and everything else he ticks the boxes. He's a good leader. He's shown he won a national championship coming as a replacement for Jalen Hurts, who got dropped. So he took over the starting position, won a CFB championship, which was brilliant. So he's shown he can lead a team. He's got the arm talent. He can run. Everything about him is really, really good, and you could build a franchise around this guy. And if you can look past the injuries, it's a really, really good pick for the Dolphins or the Lions, who I think could take a chance on him, but I don't think they will.
No, I did see that the other day. I said if the Lions get in there before the Dolphins and take him, if the rumours start circulating, do you think the Dolphins will try and trade up and try and say, we really want? Well, they won't say we really want Tua, but they'll try and kind of swap picks almost.
Yeah. Well, if the Lions know the Dolphins really want Tua, and the Lions keep saying we might select Tua, that can raise the leverage of a trade. They can say, well, if you don't offer us loads of picks, we're going to take Tua, so you better offer loads and loads of picks. So they could kind of like lie almost to the Dolphins and say we want a load of picks. But it's up to the Lions really. They still have Matthew Stafford, who's having his best season of his career, possibly before he got injured this season, but it's the doubts because he's always getting injured now throughout the season.
I think they'll give him another chance. I do, because if you're having the best season and then for the Lions, do you think there's other positions they need to improve before they kind of focus on the QB? If they can stick with Matt Stafford for now, they could always wait till next year, maybe hold out for a Trevor Lawrence.
Lawrence, or the one from Ohio State whose name escapes me, but. The Lions, I think what would have been a brilliant pick for them is Chase Young. He would have been a perfect fit with the Lions, but I can't see him getting past the Redskins.
I was going to say, I think someone else is going to go for him.
Jeff Okudah could be a good pick with the rumours around Darius-Slay maybe being traded. The cornerback from Ohio State, he would be a nice pick at 3. Whatever happens, the Lions have got a lot of options, a lot of paths they could go down in terms of that draft pick. A trade down would be beneficial to them because they would get a lot of picks.
Yeah.
And they could still end up with Jeff Okudah at the 5th pick.
But does that go against what the Dolphins were trying to do this season? Because they were trying to tank because they had a lot of draft picks, and if they kind of trade them away for Tua, it kind of goes against
defeats the object a bit.
Yeah, it kind of goes against why they were tanking in the first place. Yeah. But I understand the point, and I understand the premise, but I do think he's going to end up in Miami, and I think it's the best fit for him.
Yeah, it's either Miami or Detroit, but it's probably 80% Miami, 20% Detroit at the moment.
Yeah, their options are out. I mean, to be fair, Joe could still go to Detroit because of what we've seen and that he spoke to them, but I think that was, as we said, just due diligence rather than it's going to happen.
Yeah.
The final man on the list at number 3 in terms of prospects, it's Justin Herbert out of Oregon, who was at the Combine this week. He said he will work out, but he's not going to bench.
No.
Which we would have found out yesterday, actually. 3,741 passing yards, 32 passing touchdowns, 4 rushing touchdowns, 6 interceptions. As the question marks lie with Burrow and Tua, the question mark over Justin Herbert is the fact he has never left Oregon in his life.
No.
So that questions him as a leader. And, for example, Burrow made the decisions best for his career. He stayed an extra year at Oregon. He didn't have to, but he chose to.
Yeah.
But he also said he was the MVP of the Senior Bowl.
Which is
a fair... it's a good enough achievement. And if you want to show, for example, GMs, or you want to show head coaches that I can play for it in the big game, Senior Bowl's a good place to start.
Yeah, definitely. Like the doubts, like you said, with Justin Herbert, that he's never taken a snap under centre with Oregon. Marcus Mariota was the same. He also played for Oregon and he never took a snap under centre. And when he came into the NFL, looked a bit overmatched.
Yeah.
But I don't think we can compare Marcus Mariota and Justin Herbert, because I don't think Mariota can throw the ball like Herbert can.
No, that's fair.
If you saw him at his Combine yesterday, he was making the deep passes and making the intermediate passes. He looked really, really good. He run let me just find his 40 time. He run the 3rd quickest out of quarterbacks yesterday at 4.68, which is not too bad.
Not at all.
Only 9 seconds, 0.9 seconds below Jalen Hurts, who's known to be an athlete.
Yeah.
So that was a pretty good run for Justin Herbert.
I haven't got Jalen Hurts on here, but he's another interesting one to watch to see where he's going to end up.
Definitely.
But, Justin Herbert, my issue with him is his shy character, and that's a bit of an unfair criticism because, I'm a relatively shy person, but I just don't think that's going to work if you are trying to be either like a captain or if you're calling plays. You need people to be listening to you. You need to be able to grab your teammates and they need to be able to listen. Do you think he's got that character trait in him?
Personally, I don't know, but maybe go into the NFL and working with veterans, it might bring it out in him. They didn't know he had it. Instead of working with the younger college players that he had on his team, go into a team with a lot of savvy veterans, say, give me the ball, I'm open. It might bring something else out in him that he didn't know he actually had in him. I think Justin Herbert definitely warrants a first round pick, and I think he can be a leader and a winner in the NFL.
I'd like to think so, because do you know what? He seems like a genuinely nice person.
Yeah.
And he's very intelligent for a wide receiver. I think quarterback. I think he got one of the highest scores in the test that they do.
Wonderlic test.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's going to get a pretty high score. And now we will move to the wide receiver prospects, because they also were at the Combine yesterday.
Yeah.
We've got our top 3, like we do usually, but we will talk about other ones that I have written down. Laviska Shenault doesn't quite make the top 3, but He's out of Colorado. He had 56 receptions as a wide receiver, 764 yards and 4 touchdowns, 161 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. So, what do you think? Because he could play, as I've put down here, he could play as a wing-back a bit like Deebo Samuel. Because, I mean, he's got the rushing yards, he's got the receptions, he's got the receiving yards, couple of touchdowns. What did you see from him yesterday that makes you think top quality wide receiver? Because I think he is a brilliant wide receiver.
Yeah, I think he's a very good player. I think he's more of a Swiss Army knife player because he can, like bit similar to Deebo Samuel, take catches out of the backfield. He can line up as a running back, but he's also got the speed to play wide receiver. I think he's another player who's going to be a first round pick, maybe that mid first round pick area. I think he's probably one of the biggest wild cards going into the draft because, we just don't know, is he a wide receiver or a running back? But that can be a good problem because he's shown he can play both positions.
Yeah.
And make plays at both positions. I think he's a very, very good player. And whatever team does pick him, he's getting just an all-out playmaker that can line up anywhere around the field.
I was going to say, as you say, no matter who drafts him, I think he's a good draft choice because he's
going to bring something to the team in any way.
Because of his utility, if you can line someone up in various positions and get the same level of performance, that's just going to help the team. And, maybe he says, I don't want to play running back, but if, for example, you maybe bring him in for a game just to have that extra option, maybe fake out the defense into what you're trying to do, he's always going to be a weapon.
Definitely.
And I think he's also, a lot of teams will be focused on him because he does seem like a threat for any offense.
Oh, definitely. He run a 4.58 40-yard dash yesterday, which is pretty good. I think, where did it rank? It ranked 32 out of wide receivers. It's not too bad, but speed isn't everything. We know that. And technically, he's a very, very good player. I think, like I said before, he's going to be a very, very good player in the NFL, I think.
I think, as I say, I think he'd be a useful player to draft, and I think he might be a high pick. I'd more say probably late mid first round, maybe second round.
I think that might help him though. If he goes late to mid first round, he's going to end up on a competing team, and he could be the missing piece to a competing team because he's going to be playing on a really good roster with a lot of other good talented players. I think that's probably the best situation for him.
Oh,
he's probably best off not going to a team that needs a number one wide receiver and is relying on him to do everything. I think if he does go in that mid to late first round and ends up on like a Minnesota Vikings, for example, you don't know. It could be a competing piece.
If Dalvin Cook, doesn't want to. So, we'll take a Laviska Shenault,
Yeah.
But then we'll move on to T. Higgins out of Clemson. Last year, 59 receptions, 1,167 yards, 13 touchdowns, much more touchdowns than Laviska. However, a very different player we're looking at here.
Very different player.
Measures up at 6'4". He's one of them. You throw the high ball, the alley-oop into the end zone. T. Higgins is the man you want on the end of it because he is, at 6'4", the man you want to be competing for the ball.
Jump ball receiver, any really?
Yeah, you keep him on the outside. He's been compared to AJ Green, which is, it's a fair comparison.
Yeah, Des Bryant. I look at him as like a Des Bryant type player. Do
you think so?
Yeah, one of those players that you keep him on the outside and he just makes those big contested catches.
Yeah,
big possession catch player. Run after the catch. Not really known for his run after the catch, but he's a red zone threat at the end of the day. There's not many cornerbacks that are going to be able to guard him for how athletic he is and how big he is.
You question, can he make the inside route? Simple. Don't play him on the inside route.
Yeah,
just keep him on the outside, up against the touchline, and just let him jump for the ball. Because if you've got a man who's 6'4", can outjump most corners, I'd be pretty impressed with who you're getting. But we will.
One last thing on T. Higgins, I was disappointed he didn't actually test at the Combine yesterday.
Did he not?
No, he sat it out, which I wanted to see what type of 40 he was going to run for his size, because maybe he didn't want to run the 40 because it might have lowered his stock a bit.
I kind of want to see his vertical jump.
Yeah.
I think that would have been a hell of an interesting thing to watch. But, it is down to the players. He might just be waiting for Pro Day, which it's fair enough. It gives other people a chance to look at him. But we will move to Jerry Jeudy out of Alabama. Again, could be seen as the number one wide receiver in the draft. 77 receptions last year, 1,163 yards, 10 touchdowns. An incredible route runner.
Yeah. Which is seen from Alabama wide receivers throughout the years. Amari Cooper, excellent route runner. Calvin Ridley, excellent route runner. I think at that school they definitely put it in the wide receivers' minds. Route running. Get out of the routes quickly. Run crisp routes. Because if you're a very good route runner, you can beat any cornerback because you can get open for the quarterback, which is very, very useful. I think he's probably the number one wide receiver in this draft, closely followed by CeeDee Lamb. But yeah, Jerry Jeudy he's a home run hitter in my opinion. He could
go. Will spoilers. He's next up on the list. We'll talk about him in a minute.
Yeah.
We'll stick on Jerry Jeudy for a little bit because he's kind of got everything you need. He's fast. He's tough. But he has been compared to Stephon Diggs in terms of his route running. What's your opinion on that? Because, by the way, this wasn't me, because I know he's a Viking, but this wasn't my comparison. Yeah. This was a comparison when I think I was watching an NFL Network interview. What do you think about that comparison? Do you think he's up to that level just yet?
I mean, time will tell, but I could definitely see the comparisons because he's one of those guys he's quite, I don't know how to describe it, but he's quite long and athletic. He's got quite long arms, but he can also run a lot of the routes on the route tree. He run a 4.4540, which is
very
pretty quick.
Where did that rank amongst wide?
10th.
Yeah, that's. I mean, you look at, for example, we were talking about, was it LaVisca that finished 32nd?
Yeah.
That's a big jump to Jerry Jeudy, and that's just going to raise his stock even more. Yeah. I think his stock was already high.
Definitely.
But if you look at his one thing for a wide receiver, if you've got the speed and if you also have the knowledge of a route, he's going to be feared for years to come.
Yeah.
But since if you spoiled it for everyone anyway, let's go on to the next one, which is CeeDee Lamb out of Oklahoma. 62 receptions last year, more yards than Jerry Jeudy at 1,372 and 4 more touchdowns. But for me, very different player. For example, you've got Jerry Jeudy who can run the routes. CeeDee Lamb, run after catch, is very impressive.
Yeah, and once he gets the ball, he kind of turns into a running back.
Yeah.
He's very hard to bring down. He's one of those guys that once you get him the ball, he's going to make plays. I think he's similar to DJ Moore of the Panthers, who was a first-round pick 2 years ago. I thought the Cowboys were going to draft him, but we took Leighton Vander Esch instead, which has worked out for both parties. But yeah, CeeDee Lamb, he's a difference maker on the field. He had a very, very good season at Oklahoma. I mean, he could be the first wide receiver taken on draft night. I think it's him or Jeudy, really, who goes first.
And they're very different as well. It depends what you're looking for. As I say, I think if you're looking for the route with the speed, I think you'd probably take Jerry Jeudy. And I think for, as I say, running after catching the power and the more physical aspect, I'd take CeeDee Lamb. And if you want a guy who'll get you first downs, I think CeeDee Lamb's the man to get you a first down.
Definitely. I think CeeDee Lamb could be a good target for the Oakland Raiders.
Yeah.
Giving Derrick Carr a reliable target.
Excuse me, it's the Las Vegas Raiders?
I know, I keep forgetting.
They've moved.
I will get it right eventually, but it's the Las Vegas Raiders. Going into the new stadium, he could be one of those superstar players on offense as a rookie and a reliable first down target for Derrick Carr, whose future is uncertain with the Raiders, but we'll have to see how that pans out.
The Raiders may very well draft one of the QBs that we mentioned because we don't know about Derrick Carr and his situation. Have you got any stats on CeeDee Lamb from the Combine? Did he perform for one?
He took part in the Combine. I'll just get his 40-yard time up now. He ran a 4.50 flat, and it was ranking 21. He ranked 21 among receivers.
That's it's a middle time. I mean, not everyone's going to be the man we mentioned next, which is Henry Ruggs the third. Out of Alabama, 40 receptions, 746 yards, 7 touchdowns. The thing is, because you had Jerry Jeudy and Henry Ruggs at Alabama, he's a very high-end 2 receiver.
Yeah,
is what I'd say Henry Ruggs is. And I mean, extremely fast. And we were looking forward to his 40-yard dash because we thought this might be the man to break the record. Sadly, that didn't happen.
No, it didn't happen, but he did rank first in wide receivers 40-yard times, as many people predicted. He ran a 4.27. Second was Quez Watkins with a 4.35, so he's smashed it really.
Yeah, he's miles
Henry
away
Ruggs the third.
in thing. Do you think playing alongside Jerry Jeudy in terms of, obviously we're saying he's the number 1 wide receiver, and he's probably a good second receiver. Do you think that helped or hindered him? Because I think it helped because he wasn't
Definitely
the
helped.
number 1 target all the time, and I don't think he can be.
If Jerry Jeudy's on the field with Henry Ruggs, they're probably going to take Jerry Jeudy over Henry Ruggs, because if you look at the stats, Henry Ruggs, especially receiving yards, doesn't match up to Jerry Jeudy's receiving yards.
No, not at all. There's about 500 between them.
Exactly. He's more of a number 2 target, so the questions could be there. Can he go into a franchise and be the number 1 target? I think a good fit for Henry Ruggs would be the Broncos, because they've already got Cortland Sutton, another big possession wide receiver. He could go in as the number 2 receiver with a bit of speed, kind of like offer something different to Cortland Sutton.
I was going to say it might be a team that doesn't need a number 1 wide receiver, because we were talking earlier where for example, I think it might have been LaVisca Chenault where we said you don't need a guy who's going to be your number 1 person for years to come. I think if you have an offensive weapon at wide receiver, and then you have Henry Ruggs on the other side, who is another weapon that people will be worried about to try and they've got to try and cover the both of them together.
Exactly, yeah.
I think it'd work well for both wherever Henry ends up and the team that he plays for.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
But we'll go into the running back prospects because, we were talking about how fast Henry Ruggs is. The running backs haven't gone yet, have they?
No, the running backs are today.
The running backs are today, so
yeah.
we'll see some of there. We haven't got any stats on them in terms of, their 40-yard dash or anything else.
No.
So we'll just go through who we have seen so far. There's a lot of people on this list, and we'll start with a man who might be as fast as his name suggests, DeAndre Swift. He has 196 rushes last year with 1,218 yards, 7 touchdowns, 216 receiving yards, so he also can receive a pass at 1 touchdown. What do you think? Because I've got to hear that he was compared to D'Angelo Williams.
Yeah, I think he's the number 1 running back in the draft. Definitely. D'Angelo Williams is a good comparison. I think another good comparison is probably Josh Jacobs, who got drafted this season by the Raiders.
Yeah.
The rookie.
Yeah.
Because he's a running back where he's fast, but he's also a tough running back to bring down.
Yeah.
I think he's another player that goes to a team that's picking late on in the draft. I don't think he's a high first-round pick because running backs aren't usually, unless they're like a Saquon Barkley or a Zeke Elliott, they're not really taken high in the top 10s. So he could go to a team that's contending, and he could be another piece in the backfield for him.
It's good to see the receiving yards as well, because if you can catch the ball as well. He actually doesn't rank very high in terms of receiving yards into others that we will mention later. But one thing you got to look at, he's quick, elusive. He can find the hole. He can make the jump cuts that you want to make. I think it's another one where I'm just like, if you take him, you'll be very impressed with him. A very good player.
He's one of those players where it's just a solid, really, really good pick. You know what you're going to get with him, and it's a safe pick. Really, it's not a bad pick.
No, but speaking of another man who had a few more receiving yards than DeAndre Swift and a lot more rushes, it's J.K. Dobbins out of Ohio State. 301 rushes, 2,003 yards, 21 touchdowns. That's 14 more touchdowns than Swift, who we mentioned prior. 247 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns, obviously, after receiving. A few notes, very tough, very, very physical, and he can power through contact. Once you, if it gets a bit bunched up at the line of scrimmage and you need maybe 1 yard and you need a first down, if you want someone to power through with the legs, I think he'd be the guy to go for.
Yeah, definitely.
However, when we speak about receiving yards, the game against Clemson, he did drop a couple of catches. Do you think that's a worry for teams?
Yeah, definitely. If teams are wanting to pick him as a hybrid running back who can run and receive, it's definitely a red flag. But I think as a receiving running back, it's definitely something that can be taught as the player goes on throughout the league. I remember when Zeke got drafted by the Cowboys, he was drafted as just a full-out runner, and he didn't actually start being a receiving threat till about year 3. When he started wanting to receive the ball more. So I think it's something that can definitely be taught. But when you look at his skill set, like you said, he can put his head down, he can get the tough yards, and he's still pretty fast.
Yeah.
And 21 touchdowns, if you need him at the goal line, he's gonna punch it in and get that touchdown for you.
Definitely. You can't really moan at the production.
No.
But talking of production, Jonathan Taylor out of Wisconsin, you speak of 21 touchdowns, that's how many he got with Wisconsin. 320 rushes for 2,003 yards, 252 receiving yards with 5 touchdowns. And my only note was, just look at the output, really.
Yeah.
In terms of the receiving yards, the yards that he got from receiving it. If he's got, it's people who just produce. And that is exactly what Jonathan Taylor does. There's not much else we can really say. Have you got any notes on Jonathan Taylor?
Makes plays. And again, another player that is useful in any offense just because what he can do. Stat machine. Gets the yards. I think he could be like maybe a second or third round pick, really. I don't think he's a first round talent. But he's one of those players that whatever team picks him up, they're gonna get a good player.
Especially with running backs, you need to be above what we're talking about, which is strange because you look at the production, 21 touchdowns, you think that's a good amount of touchdowns for the college level, but you've got to be more than that. You've got to be Zeke or Saquon, as you said earlier.
Yeah, you've got to be a person that can affect the game in many different ways and not just running the ball.
Yeah.
I think running backs are looked down on a bit because they're looked at as like, you can pick up a running back any point in the draft and they can be impactful, but there are those few people that do make a bigger impact than more of them.
And I think we're seeing that more this season. For example, you look at how impressive Derrick Henry was. I think you look at other running backs that have been impressive, for example, Saquon, and you've got the man from the Christian McCaffrey from the Carolina Panthers. You've got Dalvin. I'll put Dalvin in there.
Dalvin was a second round pick.
Exactly.
So you can pick up the talent in the second and third rounds from running back without a doubt. Derrick Henry was a second round pick. Aaron Jones, who had like 14 rushing touchdowns for the Packers. He was a 4th or 5th round pick.
Exactly.
So these running backs, they can be picked up later in the draft, but they can make an impact and they can be very useful to a team.
And these are just some of the standout ones. And finally, that's not on here because I'm going to talk about one specific individual in a minute. It's Cam Akers from Florida State. Kind of what we said already. He's explosive and elusive, but he works very well on the perimeter.
Yeah.
He's got 231 rushes, 1,114 yards, 14 touchdowns, 225 receiving yards, and 4 touchdowns from receiving. To be fair, as we say, a lot of these are just steady.
They're safe picks, aren't they? Could be similar to like maybe a Curtis Samuel from the Panthers who can line up as a wide receiver as well as a running back. Yeah, he's another player who, picked later in the draft, can make an impact.
However, my favourite, arguably because of his name, but also Joe Burrow did state this is the best player he's ever played with. And it's the running back out of LSU, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. 215 rushes, 1,414 yards with 16 touchdowns, 453 receiving yards and 1 touchdown. He's a running back who can catch the ball. He got 50 receptions in his last year at LSU.
Which, that's crazy, isn't it?
For a running back, yeah, I mean, wide receiver, I wouldn't be too bothered, but as a running back, yeah, he's been compared to Austin Eckler out of the Chargers. Would you say that, one, that's a fair comparison, and 2, do you think he's the highest picked running back?
Austin Eckler's a good comparison. Another comparison I could say is Alvin Kamara from the Saints, another guy that racks up a load of catches, but also is a very, very good runner. This guy is just a player that wherever he's on the field, he's going to make an impact just because of his speed and his power and his elusiveness. I think he's probably going to be. It's either him or DeAndre Swift that's going to be the first running back picked on draft night. Will he be a first round pick? I'm not too sure, but he's definitely going to be. No, he's not going to fall past the second round in my opinion. A team is going to look at his stats and they're going to look at the impact that he makes on the field, and we're going to say we can't pass up on this guy. Let's get him in because he's a playmaker. And with him being versatile, it just makes him even more useful to teams.
Yeah, and I mean, with Joe Burrow, it can only help saying this is the best player I've ever played with. Because if that's your number one draft pick saying he's the best one I played with at my team, which won the national championship, that's only going to help the
Bengals. I mean, I know they've got Joe Mixon, but he's up for a new contract. Do you want to pay him? You could get Joe Burrow, then you could get Edwards-Helaire.
I think that'd help Joe Burrow as well in terms of, like he hasn't seemed most confident playing for the Bengals. If you say, well, what we'll do is we'll try and bring your teammate along with you who you've said is the best, then that, I know it doesn't quite work in that ideal world, but if it did, that'd be bloody brilliant.
Joe Burrow would be pretty chuffed for that one, definitely.
But now we've got to look at the other side of the ball as well. We've got to look at the defensive prospects coming into the draft. I'm going to start with, I know I usually start with the ones that I don't like, the ones that are on the edge.
Yeah.
We are starting with the ones that are on the edge. It's the edge rushers. And Chase Young, consensus second pick to the Redskins is what we're presuming.
Probably in the draft, if you're looking at just pure prospects, taking position away, he's probably the number one prospect.
No, I completely agree. He's arguably the best player in the draft. He's from Ohio State as an edge rusher, 16.5 sacks, 6 forced fumbles, 32 solo tackles, bursting off the edge, arguably the most disruptive player to come into the NFL. What do you think?
I mean, the stats say all, really. Yeah. He's just a brilliant player. I mean, I know a coach at Ohio State, I think, said he's better than Joey Bosa and Nick Bosa, which if it is true, you're getting a hell of a player.
Yeah, that's
Washington.
A big statement.
And I don't really like he's going to Washington because he's going to be going up against Leo Collins and try to bring down Dak Prescott. So I hope he doesn't go to the Redskins. But I think it will happen. Yeah, he's a home run player, in my opinion. The best defensive end in this class by quite a mile, if I'm being honest with you. But yeah, what more is it to say about Chase Young?
To be fair, I just want it for people that don't quite watch the NFL as much as we do and they don't quite understand how good is Chase Young. You'll see when we talk about the other edge rushers in the draft that are prospects. The other two combined 1 forced fumble, 6 on his own for Chase Young, and the highest one, obviously, 30 solo tackles for a guy we'll talk about in it, which is Bradley and I. But he's got 32, he's got more than them. And if you combined the other two in terms of sacks, they've only got 3 more than Chase Young himself. So is that enough to tell you about how good this man is?
Just a disruptor off the edge, and he's going to cause havoc. He's going to be a brilliant player in the NFL.
The most disruptive player that, as I say, maybe if he is, I think, do you know the hype around Nick Bosa last year? He is this year's pretty much.
Yeah.
But then you look at, I'll talk quickly over the other ones because, to be honest, Chase Young is by far and away the best edge rusher.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
arguably the best player.
Definitely.
You've got Bradley and I from Utah, edge rusher, only 13 sacks, but 1 forced fumble and 30 solo tackles. And then also you've got Terrell Lewis out of Alabama, another edge rusher, got 6 sacks, which is half as much as Bradley and I, but still a good player. And no forced fumbles, but 21 solo tackles.
Got 2 more here as well.
2 more from Will. Please put them to the floor.
Yeah, AJ Epinesa, who I think he could probably be the second defensive end taken. He had 11.5 sacks, 32 solo tackles, and 4 forced fumbles for the Iowa Hawkeyes. And then another one who is going into the draft as like a bit of a, where do we play? Is he a linebacker? Is he a defensive end? Plays for the LSU Tigers, Clayvon Chason. He had 34 solo tackles, 6.5 sacks, and 1 forced fumble. A YouTuber that I watch called Foots the King. He's more of like analyses college talent. He's got a friend that plays in college football at a pretty high level as a offensive tackle, and he came up against Chase Young and Clayvon Chason, and he actually said that Clayvon Chason has a better motor than Chase Young. So he could be another player that I think is a mid-first round pick.
Better motor, but is it better production than Chase Young?
I mean, Chase Young's a better player, definitely. Definitely a better player. But if Chase Young's got the motor that this guy is saying that he has done, that he has, he's going to be contributing to any team that needs a pass rusher on their team.
So that's, I mean, if you don't get Chase Young, you're not out of options. Is basically what we've basically said. There, you've got
those are good players. Chase Young's in another universe compared to these players, but these players are also very good picks.
Yeah. But then we'll move on to defensive tackles. We've got Derrick Brown as our number 1 defensive tackle, I'd say, out of Auburn. He got 4 sacks with 2 forced fumbles and 33 solo tackles. I mean, look at 33 solo tackles. Out of the 2 more I've got written down here, out of Gallimore and Madubuike, between them, only have 36, and he's got 33 on his own.
Yeah.
So that tells you all you need to know about Derrick Brown. I think he's going to be absolutely brilliant.
He's going to be a top 10 pick, definitely. Maybe could see him going to the Panthers, maybe, just shoring up that defensive line. He's by far the best defensive tackle in this draft.
There is a few we're going to mention. I'll mention them now. We've got Neville Gallimore out of Oklahoma.
Yeah.
4 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and 18 solo tackles. So the same amount of sacks and forced fumbles as Derrick Brown, but the solo tackles.
He's eating running backs for dinner.
He does not need your help. Don't worry about it. Do you know last year when it took 3 people to get George Kittle down? Get Derrick Brown in there. It might only take 1. Justin, I think it's Madubuike. I'm not sure how you pronounce it, but
I think so.
He's from Texas A&M. He got 5.5 sacks, so more sacks, but 1 forced fumble. He got 1 interception from the defensive tackle position in a W against in a win, I should say, not a W, in a win against Arkansas. 18 solo tackles from Madubuike, which again, good production. But another man I've got a picture of here, which we did talk about, was Javon Kinlaw.
Yeah.
Out of South Carolina. You like Javon Kinlaw?
Yeah, I think Javon Kinlaw is probably the second best DT in this draft. What stands out about Javon Kinlaw is he's not one of those DTs who's going to rush the passer, but if you want a complete run stopper who's going to slow down the opposition's running attack, Javon Kinlaw is the man for the job, because he's known to be one of those guys. You just plug him in the middle at the one tech, and he's going to stop running backs in their tracks. Yeah. Very, very good run stopper. He will be. I mean, he's going to be picked after Derrick Brown, definitely. Maybe like in the range of 10 to 15. I'd love him on the Cowboys. We've got a glaring hole defensive tackle. We've got Javon Kinlaw. I'd be very, very pleased with that. Yeah. I don't think he's going to fall to 17, because I think the team's going to just take him and think, we've got a brilliant defensive tackle that could be on our team for at least 8 years here.
Yeah, definitely.
Javon Kinlaw, very, very good player.
To be fair, the stats don't say because only 6 sacks and 15 solo tackles, but sometimes the stats don't tell you everything.
No, and Damon Harrison, who just got released by the Lions, he was probably the best run stuffer in the league for a good 5 years, and he didn't get as many sacks. He only got like 2.5 sacks, 3.5 sacks. But if you look at what he does, the stuff that doesn't show up on the stat sheet, very, very effective stopping the run.
Yeah. The final one, which obviously I've not got a picture of, it's just another one to mention, is Ross Blacklock out of TCU. 3.5 sacks for him, but 25 solo tackles on the year. Yeah. No forced fumbles for either Kinlaw or Blacklock. But as we said, you can only take so much from the stats.
Definitely.
I'm giving you, but I think they're fair to give. Just give people that haven't watched, a fair enough respect of what they're looking for.
Yeah.
But we'll move on to an offensive lineman. Wow, the beast of a man that is Mekhi Becton out of Louisville. Offensive tackle. You can't get many stats for offensive tackles, so I just decided to put 364 pounds and he's 6'7". That's all you need to know.
That's all you need to know. He's a big guy on the. It says he's an offensive lineman, but for his size, he could be one of probably the best guards in the league.
Yeah, no, I think you could play him there, definitely.
I was reading some stuff about Mekhi Becton, and for his size, he's got very, very nimble feet.
Yeah.
So he's not one of those guys that just sits down and tries to spread his arms out and stop you. He can also move with the defensive end, and for a guy of that size, that's a pretty scary combination. If you're a defensive end going up against him, I think with the offensive linemen in this draft, there's about 4 or 5 that could be picked in the top 20, just because of the team needs and how talented the offensive linemen are in this draft. But I think he's probably the number one player taken. Maybe the Giants could look at him.
One purely because of size and production as well. But if you say you can move him to guard, there's another man in the draft that I believe you could also move to guard, which is Tristan Wirfs out of Iowa. He's 320 pounds. He's 6'5". He's not quite the level of Mekhi Becton, but he's another man that you could move to guard and do a fair enough job.
Yeah.
Looking at more O-linemen, you've got Jedrick Willis Jr. out of Alabama. He's a
brilliant player.
He's a bit smaller in terms of he's only 312 pounds and 6'4". So that might be, sometimes teams do look at that and think it's, for example, we look at Joe Burrow and his tiny hands. People were making out that can be a massive tell for it.
Although size, I can understand the doubt, like you said, it's a bit smaller, but Larry Allen was only 6'2". He's an Hall of Fame offensive lineman just because of how big he was.
Yeah.
So size isn't everything, but I think when you look Jedrick Willis is more of an offensive tackle. I think if you can get these people to play offensive tackle, it's more of a viable position because they're going up on their own against a defensive end, a right end or a left end. Those are the guys that are going to have to block Nick Bosa, J.J. Watt, Chase Young when he comes into the draft. It's more of a position that's more desired. So if you can get them to play offensive tackle, they would be better off as an offensive tackle. But yeah, I think any of those guys.
Yeah,
whenever you pick him,
maybe had a bit more muscle in the off-season, possibly. Yeah. Another man is Andrew Thomas out of Georgia. He's 315 pounds and he's 6'5", so only slightly bigger than Jedrick Lewis. But another man I've got a picture of here, and that is because of his story more than because of his. I mean, he's not a bad player, don't get me wrong, but
he's still a very good player.
It's offensive lineman Austin Jackson out of USC. 322 pounds and he's 6'5". But I've basically included him as one of my highlights because he donated bone marrow to his sister with cancer. So I'm all there for a good personality and I'm all there for a good story. Very inspirational.
Yeah.
And I think, you look at also USS personalities during the Combine, and if you've got a man who's willing to do that, then you've got a man who's going to give it all for the badge and for whatever team he plays for. That's what I take from it. Anyway, maybe I'm looking too much into it.
No, I've seen a lot of mock drafts, so he's going late first round, so he's still known as a pretty good offensive lineman.
Yeah, because you've also, as much as a nice guy, you've got to look at the talent as well, but I think he partners both of them really well. I think he'd be an asset to any team.
Definitely. Coming from USC, big school, talented, coming up against good competition. I think he's another very good pick.
One more O-lineman, Cesar Ruiz out of Michigan. He's another steady offensive lineman, 317 pounds, 6'3".
These are all big guys, aren't they?
Yeah, they're all people that I would not want to fight. But then we'll move to the corner position, and the best corner in the draft, in my opinion,
by far,
by a long way, is Jeff Okudah out of Ohio State. 29 solo tackles for him this season, 2 forced fumbles, 3 interceptions, and 9 passes defended. He has done it all. You'll look at some more that I'm going to mention the stats for in a bit. If they've got more solo tackles, they haven't got the fumbles. If they've got more passes defended, they haven't got the interceptions. He has done it all.
Oh, definitely. I mean, every single draft, there's always that one cornerback that stands out above everybody else. Jalen Ramsey, for example, when he got drafted out of Florida State. Marshawn Lattimore, who was also a cornerback out of Ohio State, was taken 8th overall, and the Saints are reaping the rewards because he's a brilliant cornerback. There's always that one cornerback that shows that he can be a star in the league. Jeff Okudah is no different.
I mean, these guys have got to be marking the wide receivers of the league.
Yeah.
Very talented wide receivers. I mean, look at the draft class we've got this year. There's going to be even more. I think he's going to be one of them that'll deal with it absolutely. He's reading of the game. Very
rangy, can make big plays.
Yeah.
I think, how many, 3 interceptions did he say he had on the season?
3 interceptions on the season, 9 passes defended. So, as I say, he kind of does a little bit of both.
And also, he might have not been thrown to as much because teams are just thinking, we don't want to throw to his side. We don't want to test him because he can make us pay.
Don't risk it. It was, I can't remember who it was. I think he plays for San Fran. Is it Richard Sherman?
Richard Sherman.
It was against us, the Vikings, and they would have said, if I tell Kirk Cousins not to throw anywhere, it'd be to Richard Sherman's side.
Yeah.
The moment he threw to Richard Sherman's side, interception. They're up the other end. But, I mean, where do you think he's going to end up? Because I'm just saying, he's not going to fall that far, but if we want to cut Xavier Rhodes, and we can take Jeff Okudah instead, but I don't think he's going to fall that far.
No, unless you trade it up and you give up a lot of assets to get him, possibly. But there's other cornerbacks in that range that the Vikings could probably end up with that do a job. Jeff Okudah, I think the first 2 picks are guaranteed to be Chase Young and Joe Burrow. Well, Joe Burrow to the Bengals and Chase Young to the Redskins. Yeah. After then, Jeff Okudah could go from the Lions maybe to the 10th pick. I've seen a lot of mock drafts because of the offensive tackles that have been taken in the top 10 that he falls to 9 to the Jags. Yeah. If that happened, that would be an awesome pick for them. I know that he'd be a brilliant replacement for Jalen Ramsey. I think the Lions, though, if they don't trade the pick with the Dolphins for Tua, he's definitely the...
You might as well look here because I was going to say the only 3 ones I'm more or less sure on are the first 2 and Tua to Miami. It's kind of it depends how important is it to the team, but also do you just take him because maybe you don't need a corner, but he's so good that you can't pass up on the opportunity. I remember, like for example, last year when the Steelers traded up, they must have thought that we need this pick now, so we're going to, we need, for example, a team that's just said we might as well take him because we need him, and some people might trade up for him, you never know.
Best available player.
But we'll look at some other corners. You've got C.J. Henderson out of Florida, 26 solo tackles, and as I said about Okudah, C.J. had no forced fumbles, no interceptions, but he did have 11 passes defended, so that's fair enough on his stats. Jalen Johnson out of Utah, 34 solo tackles, big tackler, no forced fumbles, 2 interceptions, and 11 passes defended. Interesting about Jalen Johnson, he had double interceptions in 2018, which might be a sign of regression, which is not very good.
No, I think interceptions, though, they kind of are looked at as, if this cornerback's got interceptions, he's a good cornerback, which is it's absolutely ludicrous in my opinion, because it's very opportunistic interceptions. It can be very like a much of a padded stat. Someone could have a load of interceptions one year and then none the next year just because they were in the right place at the right time. But some of these corners, you've also got to look at if they've got no interceptions. It's the same thing I said with Jeff Okudah, where they're being thrown to a lot. Byron Jones didn't have a lot of interceptions, but he's shown he can lock receivers down and not have many catches on him. Same with C.J. Henderson. I think he's another player who, if the Vikings got C.J. Henderson, for example, I think that would be a great pick just because he's a lockdown corner, and I think his stock is definitely rising as we go through the draft process.
And exactly, you can't just look at interceptions, because if you just look at interceptions, some of these are... we look at some others down further in the draft. We'll talk about him in a minute because there's another one before him. But Christian Fulton has got 1 interception, but he's still one of the highest.
Man-to-man corners, one of the best in the draft.
One of the best in the draft. AJ Terrell, before we talk about Christian Fulton from Clemson, 24 solo tackles, no forced fumbles, 2 interceptions, and 3 passes defended. Another guy that I have put in here, though, 24 solo tackles in 2019. In 2018, he had 40. So again, do people look at these stats and think he's regressing in terms of he can't take a man down by himself?
Yeah, possibly. But it's with corners, it's very hard to evaluate tackling because usually the tackling is left to the linebackers and the defensive linemen. And if the running back breaks through, that's when you expect the cornerback to make the tackles. It's not that they have to make the tackles often, but 40 tackles he's shown when needed. There might have been big plays where he needed to make the tackle. He can make the tackle.
He might not have needed to as much this year. Maybe the team got better. We don't know quite. I don't watch enough college football to tell you why this specifically happened, but they're just the stats. But another man that I have got as one of my top 3 is Christian Fulton out of LSU. 28 solo tackles, no forced fumbles, 1 interception, 14 passes defended.
Man to man, probably one of the best corners in. Jeff Okudah is the best corner overall.
Do you think he's second to Jeff Okudah?
I think he is. I think he's probably the second cornerback taken on draft night. His man defense, he just can't be overlooked. I know a lot of teams that might run the zone might not be interested, but in press coverage, going up against the wide receiver, Christian Fulton's one of those guys where he wins most of the matchups. I
mean, a lot of people are talking about this being a great wide receiver. I also think this is a very good corner class.
Definitely.
For my opinion. And that's ironic because they both play up against each other week in, week out. So it'll be a lot more interesting trying to see how these people run their routes against these corners specifically. But another man, Damon Arnett out of Ohio. He's a corner. 27 solo tackles on the year, 1 forced fumble, 1 interception, and 8 passes defended. Jeff Gladney, corner out of TCU, 24 solo tackles, no forced fumbles, 1 interception, and also 14 passes defended. Yeah. And the final man on the list that I've got as one of my top 3 might be due to a certain brother of his, but it's Trevon Diggs out of Alabama. 20 solo tackles, no forced fumbles, 3 interceptions, and 8 passes defended. Very good corner, and I'd just love to see him face his own brother.
Would you not love him on the same team as your brother?
I would, and I do actually think he might be available come our slot.
Definitely.
I personally think. But do you not think we need more of an offensive lineman rather than a...
Maybe. Obviously, with the offensive, Austin Jackson could be an option. Could be an option for the Vikings if he falls to him.
Yeah.
There's a lot of offensive linemen in this draft, but Trevon Diggs.
I want Trevor. I do. I
It
really
would be a good
do.
pick with the uncertainty around Xavier Rhodes and Trey Waynes is a free agent. He could leave, so cornerback's definitely a position of need for the Vikings. If he's there, it'd be a good pick. Alabama, and big school.
I just want him to come up and be with his brother. I mean, as much as Stefan, he's going to be a Viking according to Rick Spielman. Just to have his brother on the team as well. Why not? Let's have all the Diggs family.
It'd be interesting in training camp to see them go up against each other. Would it be a bit more intense for for both of them going up against each other?
Seen as a man who's watched Stefan Diggs, I feel like he definitely does not take it easy. He doesn't seem like the type of guy that's a very and I won't jump for the. No, he will. He'll take you out
on the field. There's no room for Trevon Diggs to shout his mum that Stefan's beating him.
No, but I would love to have him on our team. But again, I also love the idea that Diggs v Diggs would be an incredible matchup. We'll have to see where he ends up.
Yeah.
We will be doing a mock draft. I just want to interject that here, but we're not going to do it just yet because that is in April and we've got free agency before that. I don't want to get all the good ideas out there right now. We'll save it to see how people perform at the Combine and where people end up. We'll move to the safeties. I think it's safeties and linebackers I've got here, and that's going to be our final people of the day. Our first one, I think the best safety in the draft, Isaiah Simmons out of Clemson, safety or linebacker.
He can play anywhere.
Either or. 67 solo tackles on the year, 7 sacks, 1 forced fumble and 3 interceptions. 67 solo tackles.
Yeah, he's one of those guys where whatever team picks him, just going to get superstar talent because he's so versatile. He can play a safety, he can play a linebacker. I think when he gets to about the 5th or 6th pick in the draft, it's going to be very hard for teams to pass up on him just because of the pure talent that he's got. I think he's definitely by far. He's probably the best linebacker in the draft. If you want to call him a linebacker, if you want to call him a safety, he's the best safety in the draft. He's that good. But we'll have to see where he falls. But he's definitely going to be a top 10 pick.
Oh no, I was going to say I can't see him getting past midway through the first round. For me, I think he's got all the talent in the world. And for a team that's looking for a safety, take him. Team that's looking for a linebacker, take him. Team that's looking for an offensive lineman, just take him. You might as well. But no, another man also which is up there, to be fair, with Isaiah Simmons, is Xavier McKinney out of Alabama. He's a safety. He could also play DB as well, defensive back, I think.
Cornerback, yeah. Could be a corner or a safety.
59 solo tackles on the year, 4 forced fumbles. He's got 3 interceptions. He's got 5 passes defended. That's when he was deployed at corner. And 3 sacks as well when he, that's a man who has done everything this season.
He's definitely a player on the back end that can make an impact, whether you're doing a safety blitz or whether you want to put him in the box to make, sometimes they drop safeties into the box with the linebackers to make tackles. He's shown he can do that. He's shown he can cover people. He's another player who's kind of like that Swiss Army knife, very useful. I was going to say,
we were talking about Laviska Shenault earlier doing a little bit of everything. If you want a man on defense who can do a little bit of everything, there's a lot of safeties in this draft, or the 2 we specifically mentioned just there, that you can line them up in various positions and they can be an asset to your team no matter what. Where do you see him going? Do you think he makes it out the midway through the first round, or do you think he'd be maybe a late pick in the first round?
He's definitely a first round pick. Where he goes, I think he goes between 15 and 25. He's mid-first round
team
pick.
Or you just give us that ballpark and we'll do the mock draft another day. It's all right.
We need a safety. I'd happily take Xavier McKinney at safety.
There you go. We'll send him to Dallas Cowboys.
Why not?
Another man at safety, and again, you can arguably say all these 3 are up there for best safeties. Grant Delpit out of LSU, obviously the same team as Helaire and Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
38 solo tackles on the year, 1 forced fumble, 2 interceptions, 7 passes defended, so he can be deployed at corner as well. 2 sacks. My only question mark...
Tackling.
No, it was.
What's that?
But there's also, in 2018, 3 more sacks and 3 more interceptions. But, to be fair, LSU were that good on the defensive side of the ball. Yeah, they probably weren't needed as much as they thought they were going to be.
Definitely a player of who you could say if he was in last year's draft, he would have been a lot higher.
Yeah.
But I think he's about 6'4", 6'3", Grant Delpit. So he's a player that could be deployed as he could cover a tight end. He's that big and rangy. He's a bit of a ball hog as well. The one criticism I've heard of Grant Delpit is his tackling is a bit iffy. His missed tackling is a bit annoying. But in the championship game against Clemson, when it mattered, he made the tackles.
He made the tackle.
Made the plays.
I mean, he has got nearly half. It's not quite, but Isaiah Simmons got 67. He's got 38. That is a a hefty difference between the two, 29 between the two of them. So if you want a guy to make a crunch tackle, do you trust Grant Delpit? Arguably,
it's something that can be improved on it. You know, these are young kids coming out of college. They're going to be in the league at least 10 years. They're going to improve. I think he's probably the same range as McKinney, 15 to 25. I think a team for him, if the Vikings let go of Harris, he's perfect player to slot in.
Do you know what? Get him along with Diggs, right? Why don't we just trade up?
Trade them both.
But no, and the last person that I've got as one of my favourites to go in the draft, I've got two more that I will mention, but they're not up there with the rest. It's Patrick Queen out of LSU. It seems like all we're talking about is LSU, but he's a linebacker, 37 solo tackles, 3 sacks on the season and 1 interception. I mean, I think a very big talent.
I think whoever gets him in the first round is getting a very, very good player. I think he's one of those players that's been overlooked, but he's one of the. He could be like, I remember at the start of the process, he was like coming in as some people's second rounder, but since then he's rose all the way up to a mid first rounder, and maybe even keep on rising. Based on what his combine shows people.
Yeah.
But I think he's more like a field general. He's like he showed for LSU. He can make the tackles. And he's just a very good player.
I don't think the stats say everything about him.
No.
Because off the stats, I'm actually going to list 2 people in a minute where arguably you could say the stats look more impressive, but it doesn't mean they're better players.
No, definitely not.
They're all working on different teams. As I say, LSU on the defensive side of the ball, they didn't need to be, if you look at
2 really good players.
Yeah,
really.
Exactly. It's one of them where if you're a great player in a bad team, you might look better stats-wise than a great player in a great team.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about 2 more. Kenneth Murray, linebacker out of Oklahoma. This is where 69 solo tackles on the season compared to the other 2 we've just talked about out of LSU with 37 or something like that. 4 sacks, but no forced fumbles and no interceptions from him. But, I mean, just look at the tackling. If you want a guy...
Exactly, and on his team, Oklahoma, it could be seen as more of those players that need to depend on. He must have had to be running around the field making every single tackle because he doesn't have Grant Delpit, he doesn't have Christian Fulton
He's using his own team as blockers to get to the man.
Exactly, yeah.
And then finally, a man who I'm got to admit the stats look impressive, and another man who we were talking about earlier who could cover the tight end, Zach Bourne out of Wisconsin. He can definitely come off the edge. He can cover a tight end. He can kind of do a lot. But if you look at the stats, 53 solo tackles, 12.5 sacks on the season, 2 forced fumbles and 1 interception. The 12.5 sacks for me, it's incredibly impressive for a linebacker.
What college was he from again?
Wisconsin.
Wisconsin, yeah. So he's coming from a pretty big college. I think he reminds me of a TJ Watt, who was also a linebacker, but TJ Watt is another player who can play on the defensive end and make sacks. He could be a similar player, rush the passer, but also drop in coverage and make open field tackles. So he's probably like a late first round talent, I'd say.
And another man who I think person who can be utilised at multiple if you need them, because the stats back it up. He can tackle, he can sack, he can even get an interception. You know,
he can cover.
Exactly.
Cover in coverage. So he's going to be a useful player for any team that takes him.
But that is where we will end the episode. I would like to thank Will for joining me as usual. And I'd like to just thank everyone for listening, because it's been a long one, but we have got through the Combine, and I hope everyone does enjoy the Combine. Next week, we will look at free agency, which opens in a couple of weeks. You know what? And in the future, there will be a mock draft coming your way. We'll cover the news as usual. If not, please subscribe to the Sports Corner. We've got so much. We've got Ring Rust on a Tuesday, bit of FIFA on a Monday, bit of football on a Wednesday. I tell you what, bit of bowls on a Friday. No,
a bit of everything.
A bit of everything. But thank you for joining us. We're sorry it's out a day late. That wasn't quite our fault. We sounded a bit under the water, not under the weather, under the water, because audio just wasn't right and
wasn't
a few audio issues. But I'd like to thank everyone for joining us. It's been a pleasure. It's bye from me and it's bye from Will.
See you later.